Good afternoon and welcome to today's ISCA ICAN webinar. We have Chris Wood with us today from Cedar Falls High School, and he's going to talk about their CAPS program. So before I turn it over to Chris, I just want to let everyone know if you have questions, you can use the chat feature. We are recording this, so it will be put on both the ISCA and the ICAN websites. And Chris, thank you for taking some time today to join us, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Britt. Welcome, everybody. And first off, thanks to Britt and ICAN for giving us this opportunity and asking us to be a part of the webinar series. I followed this for a long time, and it's a great way to just gather information about what's going around in our state. And so super excited to be in a new capacity, but still talking about what I think is super important, and that's students' post-secondary readiness and preparation. So we're going to roll right in. And I toyed around with how to start this, and especially in this format and webinar style. I was just telling Britt, it's different than being in a presentation in front of an audience, but I did want to set the stage a little bit because it may seem odd, especially like in this presentation format, but I want you to close your eyes with me because I think it's really important for us to reflect. And as I was going through this and reflecting on my high school experience, which was quite some time ago, I had to go back to high school. And that's where I want you to go. I want you to go back to your high school self. Some of you might be jumping with joy, and some of you may be cringing with anxiety. But either way, I want you to imagine yourself in your high school building. It might be in the cafeteria. It might be in a classroom with your favorite teacher, or in the hallways during passing period. Or if you're my age, fighting over the one computer in the school library to look at rankings and results of your sports. And why I want you to go back there is I want you to think about your career aspirations. And that term in high school to me was non-existent, but I want you to think about what were you going to be doing after high school? Were you nervous? Were you confident? Were you certain? Did you even care? And just remember that thought for me as we go through this, and I introduce you to, if you are unfamiliar with CAPS, what CAPS is and what we do in the Cedar Valley. And we'll revisit that a little bit later. Transitioning, I want to introduce you to two questions. And these are two questions that I have been asked in multiple presentations, and I think they do a great job of setting the stage. And whether you want to put these in the chat or you just want to kind of jot them down to yourself, I think they're important starting points for us as we start to have a conversation and you get introduced to what CAPS is and what we do. So that first question is just, in what way do you feel like you personally were prepared for college or career during your time in high school? I just want to take a couple seconds here and jot down some of those initial thoughts about what were you prepared for, or how were you prepared in college and career. While you're jotting those down, I want you to think about this second question, which may be even more important. In what ways were you not prepared? What did you miss out on? Now as an acting professional, what were you not prepared for? When we do this activity in person, and we do it with sticky notes, it is pretty interesting to see. But there are some similarities and a lot of what you're going to hear about in this presentation. So keep those fresh in your mind. We're going to think about those towards the end of this presentation, about maybe some of the things you're currently doing or not doing, and maybe some of the things that hopefully will shift some of your mindsets. So my name is Chris Wood. Thanks again, Britt, for the introduction. I am currently an instructor in the Cedar Falls Center for Advanced Professional Studies program. That is a mouthful, so we are commonly referred to as CF CAPS. Many of you, or hopefully, and some of you still remember me as a school counselor. I served on the ISCA board as well as the Iowa ACAC board, currently serves as an assembly delegate. For 10 years, I worked in the world of college admissions and school counseling. where I would tell you my heart still lies. I grew up in a small town in Iowa, where maybe different than many, I cherished my high school memories. I enjoyed everything my high school had to offer, from sports to music to theater, and believe it or not, even some competitive academics. I like to think that I had what many would think of as a very successful high school experience. I enjoyed it very much. But I graduated with no understanding of what I wanted to do next. I knew I wanted to seek a post-secondary degree, but as to what, I couldn't tell you. If you were to ask me on the spot, my answer would have been a pediatrician. Why? I have no idea. And my chemistry 101 class would have told me, that professor said, absolutely not. I did have the opportunity to attend Wartburg College, where I continued athletics and built amazing relationships with peers and professors, but switched my major 5 times, accumulating a lot of debt and eventually graduating with a degree in public relations and a minor in business, but still confused about what my next steps were. And still to this day, I will tell you, it was money well spent, because the experience that I had was of value. But I do recognize my privilege, and my ability to seek out those opportunities is not the same for everybody else without hesitation. So way back in 2015, feels like decades ago, almost is one, I had the opportunity to present at the American School Counselor Association with the great Dave Ford, if any of you know him. He is now serving, I believe, as the director of AEA Prep, that is Post-Secondary Readiness and Equity Partnership, I believe. And what we presented on was post-secondary success and the school counselor's role to leading that. Dave led an amazing activity in that presentation, and I'm not going to do it justice, but I do think it was a turning point for me in that activity, and then looking at my district to where I am now. So I want to run through that really quick with you. I am not going to make you all stand up in front of your offices and in your computers, but that is how Dave did it, which was why it was so impactful to have people stand up and sit down, and that'll make a little bit more sense in a minute. So what you are looking at is the average, given that data has changed since this was done, again, because I took it from Dave in 2015. So data slightly got better, but the point will be made. We're looking at a class of 9th graders, 100 students. On average, 20 of those students will not graduate. They will not earn a diploma in the United States. And those are our students that, for whatever reason, school is not fitting for them. They have not found an alternative opportunity, so they are seeking something different. 16 of those students of that 100 will graduate. They will leave high school, but they will have no post-secondary intention. They will not have aspirations to seek any additional education, and we may or may not know from a high school standpoint what they're doing or what they plan on doing, but they graduated. 10 of those next students will still plan to enroll in post-secondary education. And I want to pause on this one, because this is where it starts to really get to my core. 10 of those students are planning to enroll. They tell us as school counselors that they are seeking a form of education, but they will not actually enroll. My higher ed professionals will note that as summer melt. They are planning to come to us, and in a matter of a couple months, they don't. 14 will enroll, but will not earn a degree. Okay, so that's a large portion as we start to look at almost 60% of the students are not earning a degree by any time. Right? They're not attaining a degree. 9 of those lucky kiddos will earn an associate's degree, and 20 will earn a bachelor's degree. And the last statistic I think is important to pause on, because 11 will earn advanced degrees. And this hit home for me, because when we did this, we had a show of hands of how many in the room had an advanced degree. And I think if you did this with your staffs, you would find a vast majority have an advanced degree, far more than 11%. And it's super, the perspective to look at is to realize that we are working with a large portion of our students that may not be seeking any form of education, let alone graduating high school. But we are in the minority of having so much education. So we're on different ends of the spectrum, and the importance of finding the middle ground there with students to talk about what's next after high school and how do we get closer to helping you find purpose and find reason to seek some form of education or training after high school with intention and authenticity is super important. So I dug a little deeper, and this was part of our presentation as well, to look specifically at Cedar Falls High School, which is where I served as a counselor during this time. And similar to many high schools around the state, our graduation numbers are far above the national average. And we do a great job of getting our students across the stage. For Cedar Falls, we had a high intention to pursue post-secondary education as well. 85%, I know you can't read that very well, was our average over the course of 6 years. Very high percent that were planning to pursue post-secondary education. But when we looked at our clearinghouse data and we started to realize the students that intending to enroll and seek further education to those that actually did, it dropped significantly. We're talking on average about 60 to 80 students a class were telling us they were going to be seeking some form of education after high school, and they were not showing up anywhere. And that was hard for me. I spent years learning the systems and working with Dave and so many other professionals to track our graduation rates, to look at post-secondary educational intentions, to persistent data from first to second years. And ultimately, our Cedar Falls High School students, the vast majority were doing amazing things, and they were earning degrees far and above the averages of most other schools. Our counseling office was and still is doing amazing things, from having weekly visitors from different colleges to having consistent weekly visitors for our local community college, financial aid offices, ICAN constantly. They were doing all the right things. And they were having a huge impact on our students in the post-secondary future. But I had that emoji that you see on, it's kind of the brain exploding. You know, this one, the one that is just like frustration overload. And that was after 7 years of, we were still continuing to see those lagging numbers of students that were intending, that we just didn't know what was happening. And there are so many barriers. There's research around the barriers that students have as to why they tell you they may be seeking post-secondary education and don't, or get to post-secondary education and don't persist. But what I realized is that there had to be something more. And during this time and this frustration and trying to identify different opportunities to put our students in good positions to better find purpose in what they were doing after high school, we fast forward to December 2016. So just about 6 months after this presentation took place, I got a call from our current Cedar Falls CAPS director, Ethan Weekman, who at the time I knew him as a math teacher. I caught wind that our school board was having an initiative of sorts with our superintendent to try to identify a new and up and coming program that would put career readiness skills by focusing on real world experiences outside of the classroom. So embedding students into businesses to work with professionals on real world projects in order to find and identify their true intent or purpose, with that hope of connecting the dots a little bit closer. We weren't just focusing on the questions of what are you going to do for a living, or what are you going to do for college next year? It was rather the why, and why are you choosing to pursue that route or choosing to seek that degree? So I was invited in December of 2016 to kind of observe and learn more from an awesome and amazing program in the Des Moines area called Walkie Apex, a profession-based program that did something very similar that took students out of the classroom and immersed them into professional environments with instructors. And it was amazing to me as we walked around and we met with high school students, the level of confidence that they carried themselves with, not just in the project they were working on and in the environment that they were in, but we were complete strangers. And to have them talk about what they were doing or what they were aspiring to do after high school was pretty amazing. So fast forward a really long trip back, because it was 2 hours, but it felt like we just didn't stop talking about how do we look at Cedar Falls as a district and incorporate something that has such value for high school kids. And at the time as a school counselor, I just couldn't dive in deep enough to say, like, I'm an advocate for this type of program. So Ethan was tasked building from scratch, if you will. He came back, and it was partnership time. It was the goal of our district was to build the partnership business, community, and education. That hasn't been done before. And a whole 4 weeks later, in January of 2017, Cedar Falls CAPS was launched. It was a quick turnaround for Ethan. He had some very key things that he wanted to roll with, but we didn't want to wait an entire semester. We knew we had some students self-identified to roll through this program. And our next step was to join partnership. So we joined partnership with the CAPS network. The CAPS is a nationwide network. It was created by Blue Valley School District in Overland Park, Kansas, in 2008. They enroll hundreds of students. Programs are spread all around. I think we're actually now at 20 states that are represented, and probably even more. Cedar Falls High School started looking at CAPS a while before I had been aware of it. District officials made visits to Blue Valley and also made stops at different career programs such as Waukee and Cedar Rapids. CAPS was ultimately settled on because the direct collaboration with business and community that they set as a standard. And as we introduced that to, I say we as our district, introduced that to local businesses to gauge interest, it was lining up at the door. They were so ready. In fact, I remember it like yesterday. I remember reading a quote from our then now retired director of secondary ed, Dan Conrad. He said, "There will be no prerequisites for students. If you have a passion and an interest in an area, you're welcome to enroll." That to me was powerful, because so many of these students in that 60 to 70 range that I felt like maybe weren't finding purpose were all types of students. We couldn't pinpoint them necessarily to find an answer or a solution. So this program being an opportunity was super important. So we started small. So Ethan enrolled as an instructor at that time, 13 total students in what would be called our CAPS Exploring Engineering Careers. Ethan's initial role was that instructor to put a focus and emphasis on what it meant to be a professional, making their experience as students as real world as possible. They'd be working on projects with actual businesses and clients that were supplied by those local businesses that we consider our stakeholders, and searching through and finding purpose in what they wanted to do after high school through those projects. I'd be remiss not to mention that we are a STEM Best program. We would not have been able to start this program without a STEM Best grant. And so to get the program up and running was the support that they offered was amazing. So CF CAPS was born. We're going to get into some of the details a little bit later, but within 5 years, so we are in 5-year semester out, we have went from 13 students in one strand to 7 different strands. And as of right now, drum roll, 2022, 2023, rolling 200 registered students for the school year. It scaled quickly. It scaled across our district, and we've had amazing instructors, amazing support from the district as a whole, and amazing leadership from Ethan. So I can't do it justice telling the story nearly as well as students can. So I did bring it up to my CAPS strand this morning, kind of last minute. And I did have multiple individuals that decided that they would love to pop on, but felt for the purpose of time and organization that we didn't. However, I'm going to play a video next that I think encompasses, it's 2 minutes, and we certainly have far newer footage and fancier videos now after 5 years, but this was an original, and this was a video that was done with associates in that first strand to tell their story just about what they've experienced. And this was one semester in, and I think that's when we felt that we had something. We had something that was impactful to students, or associates as we call them. So I'm gonna play this for you, and hopefully it works.
CAPS is a collaboration between business, community, and education, where we provide our students with professional experiences while developing the local workforce. And so what we essentially do is we take students outside of the classroom and we put them into a professional environment.
It helps them gain connections, and it just teaches values and the things that are important to be successful.
I think these days that we don't really have that option anymore. It's just school. Once you're done with school, you go to college. Once you're done with college, that's when you're looking for a job. That's like 8 years down the road if you're thinking from the beginning of high school.
I've done job shadows, and I've had the time to actually research a career path for myself, and so having that time and getting that experience has been very helpful for me.
Towards the end of CAPS of now, I feel more confident in my own skins to be able to speak out what CAPS is and be able to say my skills and how I'm an asset to the workplace.
CAPS is not a class that you've taken before. It is something completely different in the coolest way possible.
When you're talking about just pure credits, you're going to get high school credit as well as college credit. You have an opportunity to work with multiple businesses throughout the Cedar Valley on a low-risk platform. You have an opportunity to explore careers. It doesn't cost you anything. You're actually gaining things with college credit here, and you get to go explore those careers and try things out and test them out. We don't guarantee you're going to know what you're going to do coming out of CAPS, but we know you're going to check things off your list, and that's worth something. So what I always say to people is, it's not why should you, it's why wouldn't you?
All right, so Chris, you've rambled on, and you've went from post-secondary success to frustrations about not finding answers to how have you taken 13 to 200 students in from a traditional high school setting on a daily basis. What is CAPS? So as I mentioned, CAPS is the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. We take students out of the classroom, as Ethan said, and we immerse them into professional environments. We refer to them as associates. We put focuses on developing problem solving and professional skills so that they have the ability and the capability to meet with professionals in a professional setting and have that professional interaction. And where I was tied in when I made that choice to leap, not necessarily other sides of the desks, but to gravitate this way without having a traditional teaching degree, was I saw the value in our associates, or those associates, seeing growth in what they wanted to do and why they wanted to do it. I can't hit home on that enough, and I think I probably already have, but the importance of being able to do in CAPS what I aspired to do as a school counselor. CAPS allowed me the opportunity to have those individual one-on-one conversations to ensure that students had a plan that they moved for, that they developed, they felt confident in, and that they could pursue. They haven't just taken a personality assessment test and read about career opportunities online. They're developing their own professional pitches. They are integrating much of what they have learned from their Zello career assessments that they do at the high school. And they're utilizing those career matches to, instead of just reading a bio, to utilize those professional skills to create their LinkedIn and connect with someone via locally or even nationally. I've had in the past to be able to make those connections, to have the confidence to sit down and do what we call a career discovery rather than job shadow. So our students lead a career discovery meeting with those professionals that they have an aspiration to learn more from. They set that up on their own. They draft the email. They review the questions. They feel prepared and confident going into that, where they can talk about their CAPS professional experience, sell themselves and pitch themselves, and then learn more about the skills that are required to pursue the said career that they're interested in. It's an amazing opportunity that I think that our students have found value in, because as you heard Tiffany and multiple others in the video say, the level of confidence when you help them understand what that skill set works. We can do that in a traditional classroom. We can provide them the skill set of this is how we develop a pitch. But when it comes down to it, giving that pitch and having that conversation with a real world professional is a completely different experience. And there will be things that you will fall flat on your face on, and that we will pick you up and we'll have conversations about, well, what didn't go well? What didn't go well? And how do you make adjustments to that? So these are our 4 cornerstones that you're seeing on the screen. Everything that we do, we have set this as our foundation: innovation, problem solving, professional skills, and career exploration. Obviously, you know what my favorite is, but I also would argue that each and every one of these have a different priority at a different point in the semester, and they all get experienced by different activities or exercises that are going through. But one of the things that I want to just touch on before I move on to the next slide, because we will get into the different strands that we offer and how they look a little bit different than one another. I set the foundation for you, is that how we begin each semester, regardless of the strand that an associate signs up for or registers for, is we have a months-long human resources or professional onboarding, as we call it, where we take those students and we turn them into associates. So we take them through very extensive training programs that we've developed with the support of the professionals in our Cedar Valley. So in fact, most of our trainings in that first month of the school year or the semester are led by experts in their own field. So that's everything from design thinking to innovative problem solving techniques, group dynamics. We do personality training, email correspondence, handshakes, eye contact. How do you lead a meeting with a professional? How do you walk in to meet somebody and have small talk? Elevator pitches, and then for my strand specifically, but every other associate as well gets trained in Agile, Scrum, project management training to go through and learn how to actually manage their projects. So at the end of this month, we have the confidence that our students, or our associates now referred to, have the ability to and trust in us to go lead the path with their clients or potential clients or professionals. We call this culmination experience the penning ceremony. Make a big deal out of it because it is a big deal, because of the month of training that is involved, that's in depth. And at times a little draining, because it is. If you've been outside of the world of education, when you take that job, onboarding and training can be challenging. So we put our associates through the ringer to then be able to earn what we have a penning ceremony where Ethan or Nate Claiborne, our business developer, will walk them through to say, hey, we feel like you're ready to enter the world of work, and we feel like you're ready to take on real world work and to represent the CAPS brand and what we would want. So this kind of signifies that our program believes that they're project ready or professional ready. So big scope of CAPS, the 4 cornerstones that we have here. Jump into the different strands that we currently offer. So each of our strands are 3 periods of our high school day. So also 3 credits. And we also offer, so 3 periods of our 7 periods day. It's about 2.5 hours with travel time, depending on where the site is. All of our strands are off high school site, and that's been very important to us. We dress professionally. We ask students to come to associates to come to these sites and find reliable transportation, or we will help them identify and rideshare. All of our CAPs are aligned with the standards of Hawkeye Community College Fundamental Oral Communication. So we have integrated communications training into our programming to meet the needs of what professionals have said, which align very well with the oral communications. We actually have a oral comm instructor who does all of our trainings. We like to refer to her as our communications coach. because we know, as we've talked to businesses and professional industries, that communication coaches are a real thing. And when it comes to pitching and leading presentations with companies, they are often hiring those communications. So that's helped our associates see that this is super real world of what they're doing. Each of our strands, and this is, I'll just quickly hit on this because I could spend 45 minutes. And in fact, I believe this Thursday, I think it's the work-based learning conference that Ethan, our CAPS director, as well as Diane Flaherty, who is our pedagogy specialist, we like to call her, are leading a session on evaluation because it's a question that we get quite often about how do you evaluate associates in project-based work like this. I'll briefly talk to it of how all of our strands evaluate their associates. We run 3 professional performance reviews, similar as you would in an industry. Each of those evaluation periods or those reviews, our associates self-assess, themselves in 5 professional standards. We've developed and kind of innovated that in conjunction with the 21st Century Skills of CTE and also with professionals in the industry, just to say, like, what are you seeing that you need from professionals? So those 5 standards are globally incompetent servant leader, effective communicator, developing purpose, emerging innovator, and developing professional. And like I said, we could dive into these pretty deep. But in order to get it right, probably the most important piece is that associates are self-evaluating themselves. As they come into that meeting with their instructor, the conversations are led by them about things that are going well, things that they know they need to make improvements upon, and things probably most importantly, that they've experienced and already had what they feel has been a valuable experience and that they can reflect on and show evidence of how they've done that. So the associate's grade is based off the most recent evaluation. They provide evidence with each of the benchmarks, which under those 5 standards there are. They must self-assess, and I can't hit that home enough because they bring the talking points for their review and around how they've grown and where they still need to make growth in. Now, I provide plenty of feedback with that, but I think that's the point that we're trying to hit home, is that you have to own that conversation with hopefully eventually your potential boss. So our strands here, we'll get started with education. So education is what we would consider an experience-based CAPS program. So they are education-based training, learning about what it looks like to work in the classroom. If I do have teachers here, you would think of this, and this is pretty much the exact experience that they receive as their level 1s. So they are planning and delivering lessons. They're working one-on-one with students, and they have 3 different placements around the Cedar Valley. Their host site is Schindler Education Center, which is located at UNI, which has been an absolutely amazing partnership to be immersed into the education center and see others that are going through this. I think one of the most important things that I want to highlight with education is that one of the projects that came out of education and then transitioned into my strand in CAPS Solutions, because Karen, the associate, took 2 semesters of CAPS, was the MIRE program. It's a multicultural individuals revered among educators. It's a program that kind of came out of as a solution to the problem of hiring students teachers of color for districts. And one of the purposes is to recruit and develop multicultural high school students to lead into public education for future employment. So Karen spent her first semester with CAPS Education and Placement, and then helped developing this program with our district, and then rolled into my semester where this became her kind of project full on, and the promotion, the development, the pitching led to this program being a real thing within our CAPS Education, where now a scholarship is given to a student, a multicultural student pursuing a degree in pre-K through 12 education, and has completed a semester within the CAPS program. Also on the back end of that is guaranteed, after the completion of your program, an interview with Cedar Falls. So an education has been a experience-based, very, very hands-on opportunity for students to get the exposure to education, the world of education. In my experience, and I had the opportunity as a school counselor to meet with all of these students as we were growing the program individually to do some career pathway stuff. Education is the strand that has associates solidify or change their direction the most. Because as was I, one of my 5 majors in undergrad was education. I ran into a young lady just last week who mentioned she took CAPS Ed and told me she's absolutely not going into education, but I loved CAPS. I said, what do you mean? And she's currently in another CAPS section. She said, I realized I loved playing with little kids, but I could not control them, nor do I want to. And I thought that was really insightful because, you know, her love of little kids led her to the direction of CAPS Ed. But the pivot to be able to look at a different direction was something that probably would have had to have happened in undergrad. And I think that helped her refocus and relook at another one. And again, it's not always finding out exactly what you want to do, but it can be ruling and checking the list off of things that maybe you don't want to do. Our next strand, obviously, I am a little biased towards this one, but this is the strand that I currently instruct, our business solutions strand. So I like to think of myself as a catch-all for CAPS. I have a project-based course where every semester I have new projects cycling through with clients in a wide variety of fields. I get associates interested in any and everything, as is the world of business. So I've had in just the past 2 semesters projects that are running in the fields of real estate, design, finance, social media, sales, tourism, event planning, and there's more. So we're heavily project-based, meaning that following our penning ceremony, my associates will be working on one singular project with a client for the majority of the remainder of their semester. There's a lot of ups and downs in that time because we've got 3 months of work. And those ups and downs are fantastic. Some of the best experiences come from a lot of the downs. We're housed at Gravitate Co-working, which you'll see in the upper left-hand corner, which is an amazing partnership. Gravitate is all around the state in co-workings or co-working spaces. So we are housed there 3 days a week. And then we're at the UNI John Papajohn Entrepreneurial Center in the Business Community Services building at UNI 2 days a week. Great resources there. Really quick, just because I'll highlight a couple of the programs because I know them so well, projects. On the bottom screen, on the bottom picture, you'll see the Blackhawk Murder Mystery event. And this was a really cool one that just to give you an idea of the types of projects that we lead, we ask our businesses to supply us with 9, 10, 11 on your to-do list, things that maybe you can't get around to, but you would love to have someone take a lead on and just move the needle. And so the Blackhawk Hotel is downtown Cedar Falls, a beautiful historic building that was purchased and kind of revitalized. And it at one point was a central hub, a community center of sorts that people gathered. And they had revitalized it and renovated it, and it didn't have that necessary sense. So the owners just came and said, we're just looking for something to raise awareness and get people back into our space. And our associates, of course, the building and knowing where it was, said we'd love to take that project on. Wide open project, which sometimes is better and sometimes not. But our associates did the research and looked at different types of events to hold in places and what was being offered in Cedar Falls. And they ended up pitching to the client this murder mystery event. Let's have a murder mystery event, which I thought was a cool idea. But what would typically happen is that pitch and the owners, yeah, that's great. Our associates' mind go, great, we're good, we're done. And then they said, well, you got to do it. So the remainder of the semester was planning, organizing, and some of my best wins in any of my projects have come out of that one because from start to finish, you saw that project. And one of the best memories of that project was them deciding that, like, okay, we're going to sell the tickets, we're going to go live, and click live, tickets sold out 10 seconds later. And I was like, well, you guys raised awareness. Well, there were a lot of disgruntled customers about not getting their tickets. So talking through that process of how to handle that communication, because you're representing more than yourself, you can't just click hit send. So awesome experience. variety of other projects with the City of Cedar Falls, House of Hope, and even our new high school that has submitted a handful of projects from their architecture company. So robotics and engineering, kind of the OG, if you will. This is like our engineering, technology, manufacturing strand. So exploring careers strongly connected to STEM. Robotics and engineering is housed at Viking Pump. The originals that took the risk to invite high schoolers into the professional environment. I can't emphasize enough that when these conversations, that I remember hearing about them, about bringing 17-year-olds into a professional workspace, and the thought of that with industry is not necessarily just the norm. And so what about security? And we're gonna have 17-year-olds walking around here. But what ended up happening was the coolest thing, because professionals found their way into the CAP space within Viking Pump. They wanted to see what they were working on. They wanted to collaborate because high schoolers' ideas were so much different than their own. The partnership was and is awesome. It's magical to walk in there and see so many employees interacting with our associates. So Crichton Engineered Metals is also serves as one of our host sites, which is pretty great place as well. CAPS Medical, this would be kind of a combo, I would say, an experience-based as well as a project-based. So there are projects that they're working on. Obviously, in the past 3 years with COVID, it's been hard to get into the medical professions. So exposure is key for all things medical and health services for our associates. There is so many different directions that this industry could go, that we just need to put an emphasis, and May, our instructor of CAPS Medical, puts an emphasis on exploration, from everything from dentistry to surgery to the HR and PR that goes into hospital and nursing homes. So May has kind of revamped this a little bit and has been implementing partnerships with a variety of different people and giving our associates week-long immersion experiences, which have been fantastic. So our associates are rotating just to get immersed into that day in the life of, for a week's period of time, to learn about what's going on. We've had amazing partnerships with our long-term care facilities. The past 2 to 3 years, especially during COVID, our med associates, as well as many of our other CAPS programs, have been partnered with the resident at our long-term facilities to have those weekly conversations and check-ins about life and the importance of how you're pursuing the next path. Really cool, really invaluable for them to not only learn about themselves, but to learn about what is in their backyard and the history that's been there. An additional opportunity that is within the medical field is we have CAPS CNA, so our Certified Nursing Aid Certificate opportunities. This is an awesome partnership with Western Home Communities. You're hearing me consistently say partnerships, right? And I think that's what our foundation is built on within CAPS, is in order to give associates the opportunity to be exposed to a variety of different career avenues and opportunities, we've had to rely on our partnerships, our businesses, our organizations, our speakers, our mentors, that see the value in associates at a high school age exploring their wants, needs, and desires for a career, but then also providing value to our companies. All of our projects in some capacity add value to our clients. I would argue almost all of them would say that, whether it's actual tangible saving dollars, or it's playing the connector for future associates to come get hired, which on Robotics and Engineering Strand, I was running short on time and I couldn't talk about it, is that we've had associates now graduate our program that are now working for those companies that they were in. So this program becomes more than just a high school education program, it's a workforce development program. And lastly, our newest and brightest lights strand we added this year is CAPS Trades and Industries. It's a unique industrial technology program, but we just got to put a CAPS style on it. So these associates still go through our month of onboarding, those handshakes, eye contact, professional skills, problem solving. They live and breathe in the trades and industries as much, if not more, than other strands. So we take them through that and then they get their hands dirty. So we've partnered with Habitat for Humanity to have our own house that our associates are going through all everything from tear out and rip through to rough-ins, electricals, estimates, drywall. They get to see all the different avenues of trades and industries, and they work alongside volunteers that own certain companies, real trades companies that are coming in there to work alongside. Again, partnerships with helping our associates grow, but also those programs and those businesses seeing the value of recruitment or conversations with associates to lead into potential opportunities for employment. Real quick, obviously we are growing. Many of you may have heard that. It's not a coincidence that these districts have all asked to be a part or asked to start a CAPS program. Our associates have shown and had conversations with professionals that leave more than just Cedar Falls area. So you'll see these districts have started their own CAPS program. And we've kind of coined our term, the Cedar Valley CAPS, that have led us to then have some Northwest schools reach out. And so these schools are considered affiliate programs, and they're growing. The interest is there. So we are always welcoming to have people. And in fact, our associates have kind of become accustomed to knowing that at any point, anybody either from DOE or from a random school district could walk in that door, and you better be prepared to give your 30-second CAPS pitch as well as introducing yourself. So they've got used to that. So these programs have come in, they've introduced, they've got exposed, they've visited, they come back for the training with our Cedar Falls CAPS program, and then they lead their own students in their own districts. Expansion is key. So from the very beginning, Ethan and Nate Clayberg have said that our metro schools in our areas, things like Iowa Big, Waukee Apex, CAPS, those are opportunities that are available in our metro areas. But in rural schools, that they often get left out, and they have lack of resources to be able to make things like this happen. So that's a priority, is to make sure that our schools in a rural setting have the same opportunities. So it's been amazing to see the growth in just 5 years. And then lastly, I think it's important to speak about, one of the sayings that we have in CAPS is what we do is about the handshake, not the handout. And you've heard me talk a lot about partnerships and what it means to students to have the opportunity to learn what it means to be a professional through real world projects, while also exposing them to the real world and careers in the real world of work, to give them the insights in terms of what type of work they want to do and why do they want to do it. We found that when we invest in those conversations about what's next, how to get there, and when we spend more time on the smaller details of how to hold a professional conversation, how to build a relationship with anybody, how to have the confidence to discover more about yourself and about others around you. Data is preliminary with our alumni, but what I will tell you is that our associates are doing just that. They're moving from graduation to their intended post-secondary aspirations at higher level than their peers who don't take CAPS experiences, whether that be enrolling into their program of their choice at the local community college, or feeling more confident in sharing with us that what they are going to be pursuing is an apprentice program. They're going to go directly to work for 6 months because they feel like they have a plan that they feel confident in and aren't ashamed to be sharing. They're in a better place with their confidence in their next steps forward. So I want to take you back just to wrap this up. The first two questions that we asked, and specifically that one about what ways were you not prepared? And my answer to this was, I was not forced out of my comfort zone. I was not asked the hard questions and forced to develop the understanding of why should you pursue college? Why do you pursue education? It's my belief that every single high school student should pursue some form of post-secondary education. I'll be clear about that. I'm very vocal about that following graduation, whether that be 2-year, 4-year, an occupation in the military, an apprenticeship. But businesses are telling us learning can't stop after high school. We know that we know that just knowing what you want to do isn't enough. We have to help students identify why they're doing it. When students understand that it's their decision, it's their own path, and they have confidence in that path, they pursue that route with more tenacity and more consistency. So I hope that each and every day that you as counselors or whatever role that you serve in are looking for ways to incorporate anything that's out of the box, and don't be scared to do that as it pertains to helping students pursue college and career, and incorporating those ways that maybe weren't things that happened for you, but you know that they should be happening. And CAPS is just one way that has been an amazing experience for me to be a part of, and for me to just witness how students are doing that. And then lastly, I'd be remiss not to mention this. We hold our annual innovation celebration 2 weeks from this evening. That is Wednesday, April 27th from 5:30 to 7. That is a highlight of all of our Cedar Valley programs. We have professionals that attend. We have, I think, 15 or 16 different teams that will be there of associates talking about their experiences as well as what their projects are. If you are in the area, consider this your invitation. We would love to have you. It is a come and go as you please. There will be some great food, and it's a highlight of our program, but more importantly, a highlight of the amazing associates that we have the opportunity to work with. So on that note, I really want to appreciate or thank Britt and ICAN for the opportunity to share a little bit about CAPS and what we do in the Cedar Valley. There's contact information there. We're always looking for business partners, and we're always looking for projects if you have any interest. So thank you very much, Britt. I greatly appreciate the time.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear about this. We're doing something similar in my district. It's similar, but I was curious. So I know you talked a little bit about how the projects come in, but you said submit a project idea. Do the students have the ability to pick their own project?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have some students that come in the idea with the aspiration to explore their own avenue. So we tend to, so most of my associates, and I can only speak to my strand specifically, most of my associates that are pursuing their idea or even business on the side are CAPS 2 associates. So they've been back to the second semester. So they've had that opportunity to kind of expose themselves to working in a professional with somebody else. With that being said, we have a lot of time built in that we call it their side hustle, right? Their side projects. So like if you are working on a client and you have a team that you feel like you managing what you're doing on your backlog of things to do, and you can set aside 2 days a week where you're going to work on your thing and your team's good with it, we let it happen.
Awesome. My last question has to do with when you mentioned it takes up like approximately 3 class periods, so they get 3 credits per strand. So how does that work? How do the strands fit into the overall like high school graduation requirements? Like how does it fit into the standards?
Yeah, so we are considered elective. So we front-ended a lot of our conversations from a recruitment standpoint with our junior highs. So a lot of our conversations are happening with kiddos and parents, most importantly, when they're in junior high. So those, we found that with it having a dual oral communications credit, which is an English credit, we've made it work. I think the challenge that we've had, the biggest challenge, and most people would know this, is our most involved kids, right? That have 4 years of foreign language and choir and band. It's a huge challenge to get them finagled into the section. We have toyed around with the idea of moving some of that programming to a hybrid end of the day after school opportunity, but we haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. So we are also scaling. We scaled so quickly that we were like, we are lacking instructors. We are moving fast. Like let's hold off. Like let's not change the world in 1 year.
And the reason I'm asking, so at Linmar, we just launched Venture Academics, which is very similar sounding to this. We have strands and all of that. This is our second semester. And they're all linked to both core and elective credits. So I was just curious how your CAPS program worked in terms of the credit versus the requirements. So that's really interesting. I'm glad to hear you guys are growing so quickly. That's good. It's
been cool to see. There's a desire, right? Like, I think part of it for me is seniors are looking for something different, right? Like they've exhausted a lot of their options, so they're looking for something. We've found a lot of value, and this would be associates' perspective of leaving the high school. And we're in the midst of building a new building, and that's been a conversation about, well, will CAPS be housed there? And our partnerships are so great that, you know, the natural conversations that take place at a co-working space or at an actual industry, you can't duplicate that, right? Or replicate that, excuse me. So it's really interesting to see associates want to leave, and the demeanor that it changes when they have the professional dress and enter a professional work setting, that their expectation and levels rise quite a bit.
Yeah, I would echo that. With our experience, we had some student panels come in and talk to us about their first semester experiences. And we had students just flat out say, I didn't thrive in a traditional classroom, but now I look forward to going to class. I want to come, I want to go to school. This has really changed my perspective on learning. And so that's what you want to hear from students when they're involved in something new. So I'm so glad that you were able to share the growth and the capabilities of this program. Does anyone have any questions? I see Laurel commented that they're looking at doing,
I miss you, Laurel.
So that's awesome to hear.
Thanks for coming, Laurel.
Go for it, Laurel. What's your question?
Okay, my question is, do you have any data on how this has helped with dropout prevention?
That's a great question, Laurel. We've had conversations. We are currently in the midst of working with a company to develop specific alumni gathering information so we can better track. We have access to the clearinghouse data, and that was kind of where I was super passionate about, is seeing where are our graduates going and which of those graduates, and disaggregating that data to look at who's not making it, who's not.
Sorry,
that's okay. Sorry. It's okay. I would say no, right now we don't, but it's something that we're aspiring to do. Especially, and I don't want to pigeonhole, but as you look at our trades and industries program, and honestly, the one associate that said he wanted to talk today was from a traditional high school standpoint, less than 2.0 GPA and strong attendance issues. And he's with me nearly daily and owning projects because he's doing work and he cares about it. And he was like, I want to come on and talk about my experience. I was like, well, we should do some run throughs first. But from just purely a perspective with no data aligned to it, Laurel, I would say that this is an opportunity that's alternative to the traditional education system that allows people to see that connection between work and school, where there's often no connection, right? Some of our toughest kids that do drop out or even graduate by the string of their pants, like pulling them across the stage, like even those, like we get them there and then we're like, all right, good luck. And they're in that weird limbo of, are they waiting for the college to come swoop them up and provide support systems? Or are they waiting for the high school to reach back out and say, hey, how's everything going? And they're in that limbo of where do we go? And I think if we can build that confidence that they do have a path, even if it's not exactly what they want, but they have an option of a path. That's what I think we've seen a lot with our trades and industries program, because so many of those kids are just getting exposed to so many different opportunities right now. So I kind of stepped around your question, Laurel. I apologize, but long story short, no, we don't have a direct correlation to data right now.
Okay, and I know that could be really tricky data to try to even pull from. But that was one question. My other question was, have any, and maybe you kind of have a feel for this, or maybe you have some data on this, and I'm not a data junkie here, but for some reason, these are the questions that are coming to mind. But my question is, how about that information that you gave, those numbers out of 100 students was really interesting to me. So I wonder how many of those students that maybe had no post-secondary intent, how many of those did that change? Or any of those who, do you think this is going to help change some of those numbers? I just think about students who would say, I don't want to go to college. And I would say, like, you don't have to, but what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Because that's really the bottom line. You might
Yeah,
need college to do that.
Yeah, I guess this would purely be speculation for me, but our students that leave our CAPS program have a better understanding of what they're good at and what they're interested in. So regardless of whether I can give them the exact, you're going to go here, you're going to go here, you're going to go here, we feel like we have a foundation that we've set with them that they can fall back upon. Oftentimes those kiddos, it's not necessarily not having the skill set, it's having the motivation to do that. And so try to push them out of that comfort zone to start, especially if we can identify some of those kids or associates, we will put those steps in place. We may push pause on a project because we feel like your personal path is more important right now. So that's the beautiful thing for us. And for me specifically is we have the flexibility to do that. Like I can push pause on a project and pass it along to the rest of their teammates and say, for the next month, we're going to focus on next steps for you. And where do you think that you need to be, right? Like, where do we need to do mock interviews? Where do we need to align for at least an option? Whereas I don't know that timing is always allowed or the flexibility is allowed in a traditional setting.
No, that's some great flexibility. This has been very interesting. Our district up here is entering into that next year, hopefully, the way it sounds
Awesome.
from our last board meeting updates. So I'm really excited to just share back some great resource person that they can contact. Your name,
Yeah.
Chris.
Laurel,
Okay,
you're
great.
welcome at my Strand whenever you want. You make the trip over here. I'll take you down to Urban Pie. We'll make a full day of it.
All right. I might take
Thanks
it
for attending, Laurel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much, Chris, for spending your afternoon, a little bit of it with us and talking about this program. I think whether you're here live or you're watching the recording later, you've given us a lot to think about. So, and Chris just said, reach out, and if you have questions, he's happy to talk, even if you're
Absolutely.
not.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. Thanks, Britt.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.